Karabakh, land full of blood and tears. These places are free today. Stones, flowers, rivers and forests in these areas are also free, breathing a sigh of relief. They also return to their homeland. Why did the forests take our mother from us? Why did you leave the children as orphans, Khojaly? And not only they, but also souls that had been restless for more than 30 years were now at peace. It hurts to watch it, talk about it, listen to it, make sentences about it, go to those places again and look at them. But once again, when you think about what the relatives of these half-destinies have experienced in 30 years, this weight is vaporized and blown into the sky. Where are you from, Latifa Khanum? I came from Dashtulak. How did this happen? Why did you leave the village? The Armenians drove out. These lands have witnessed many conflicts and wars over the centuries. But now the secrets that have been hidden for 30 years, unspoken and unsolved, are revealed like the secrets of unknown people lying in the discovered mass graves. And the discovery of these mass graves forces us to reconsider the terrible events of the past. Now, more carefully and with facts. Genocide is the process of purposeful extermination of a nation due to religious, ethnic and national differences. It is accepted as a basic condition for this process to be carried out by the government of any country. Genocide is the deliberate extermination of any nation, ethnic group or even a single person for any national, ethnic, racial or religious reason. Since February 2021, 22 mass graves have been identified as a result of excavations carried out in the territories liberated from occupation. Such cemeteries have been discovered in Dashalti village of Susha district, Bashlibeli village of Kalbacha, Edili village of Khojavend district, Farouj village of Khojalti district, Yukari Sayed Ahmadli village of Fazuli district, Yenikend village of Kalbajar district, the courtyard of Susha prison, Sarchali village of Agdam district, Kolgala mosque of Susha city, Lashin district, Shelda village, Khojali city, Galadare sub-area of Khojaly city, Kalabengli village of Khojaly city, Circabent village of Agdara region, and also in Kalbajo. The areas where some of the victims of the Khojaly genocide were mass buried are also among those discovered. All this is indicative of Armenian vandalism. The remains found in this burial show how cruelly people were killed. This is not only a historical fact, but also a great lesson for humanity. Karabakh conflict has left an indelible mark on the history of the region. Although this footage is an archive, it is the scene of decades of confrontations, thousands of deaths, and countless ruined lives. The roots of this conflict go much deeper. Soil and genetic memory is an undeniable memory of events and processes that took place in history. In particular, issues involving an entire people, including tragedies such as genocide, deportation, ethnic cleansing, and mass exile. Despite attempts to hide such bitter truths and erase their traces from the memory of history forever, real truths are passed on and will be passed on from generation to generation. The biological absence of the person or persons who performed the inhumane behaviors listed in this matter in the following years or the next 10 years also plays an important role here. After individuals have passed away, the forces against them become interested in solving the crimes committed. Mass killings and genocides against Azerbaijanis were carried out with the same ruthlessness against soldiers and civilians. In the process of occupation, That is, during the period of military aggression, Armenian armed forces mercilessly killed the peaceful Azerbaijani population in the regions and cities they occupied without making any distinction between military and civilians. Azerbaijanis were subjected to ethnic cleansing and genocide. The military and political leadership of Armenia carried out a systematic and massive massacre and genocide of civilians in the village of Mishali in Ashkara, the villages of Maribeyli and Gushkula in Shushan, the village of Garikdagli in Kocaban, the city of Kojali, the Yaddaban village in Kalbajar and other places, to physically destroy a part of the Azerbaijani civilian population living in Karabakh, to break the resistance of another part and clear the region of them. Unknown human remains. Although a mass grave is recognized by the UN as a burial site containing 3 or more murdered victims, there is no universally agreed definition. Investigating the political, social and legal aspects of mass crime does not focus on the number of victims in mass killings, but on the cause, purpose and result of the event, as well as the risks of threats to universal principles that it creates. The remains of the victims resurface the horrific events of the past. We restore them anatomically. It belongs to one person. The upper right limbs are lost. Of the foot bones, the right foot has no posterior bones. In some parts, it is divided into small-sized fragments, one leather-like shoe. These studies help to restore historical truth and ensure justice. I want you to look closely at this image. Because these human remains belonged to our compatriot found in the mass grave in Kojali, the central medical examination received the physical evidence, and upon exhuming the bones, it was revealed that our compatriot had been brutally murdered in cold weather and was not buried, but rather just dumped in the ground with clothing. Sometimes you can find such bone remains that are not yet known whether they are human bones or animal bones. Whether gender is assigned, it belongs to the woman or it belongs to the man. Then the height and injuries are determined. Each bone is individually tested and documented by our expert criminologists. There are those in the form of a whole skeleton. Some only have half. The question is the reason for their death. Why did they die? Did they die of illness or did they die of some trauma? The mechanism of how death occurred is also questioned. Did this person have any disease during their lifetime? Are there any lasting signs or traces of that disease left in the bones? We can define them as well. In the area of the joints or at the site of fractures. See, there was someone from Fuzuli recently. There was a fracture in the middle third of the right tibia, and the fracture was a heel fracture. The callus had formed. When his brother saw a bone fracture, he said, "Yes, this is him," and started to cry. Look at the skull. Those are the exit wounds of the bullets. It has been torn to pieces. There was an entrance hole on that side. It is taken from this bone, from that bone, and from this one, from each, from all. It becomes clear that it belongs to that person. Then this bone is put there, and that one is put here. After examining each of them, we prepare a criminalistic report and give it to the prosecutor's office. Only after that, representatives from the genetic laboratory come and biological samples are taken from these bones and various areas. That is, the left thigh is injured, there is a cut below the compact part, and an open fracture below the protrusion. With special equipment, think about it. It was cut off, it was picked up, and carefully documented like this. Which skeleton or bone remains does it pertain to? Where it was taken from, when it was taken, its number. Samples were also taken from forearms. If it has a tooth, the sample is also taken from the tooth. How long does it take in practice to identify human remains or transfer them to their families? It depends on what condition the bone is in. You see, it is well preserved. White, compact bone is left. But there are cases where it has blackened and decayed. We take samples, and sometimes genetics cannot find it. The DNA, which is deoxyribonucleic acid, cannot be found. Then we come again and take samples from the other parts. It depends on various factors, such as the conditions of the soil where they were buried, the type of soil, the climate, the temperature fluctuations there, and the level of moisture in the soil. It is influenced by many factors. Along with post-mortem, ante-mortem and peri-mortem injuries, individual characteristics and diseases affecting the bones, dental crowns, prosthetics, dental bridges, clothing items and artifacts are of significant importance for identification. To ensure compliance with international treaties supported by the Republic of Azerbaijan, international legal norms, and the provisions of the Criminal Code and Procedural Code of the Republic of Azerbaijan, 5 main directions have been identified for the case, considering the volume of the criminal case, the specifics to be investigated, and the large number of accused, suspects, and individuals involved. These include genocide against the Azerbaijani people, torture of prisoners and abducted individuals, terrorism, harm inflicted on the state and its citizens, and serious crimes committed with the intent of national hatred and enmity in the modern era. During the investigation at the Military Prosecutor's Office, it was established that more than 300 individuals committed war crimes against peace and humanity under the Criminal Code of the Republic of Azerbaijan, including genocide, deportation, torture, and violations of the laws and customs of war. As a result, decisions were made to charge these individuals under the aforementioned articles. The court also chose to impose pre-trial detention on them, and relevant documents were sent to the appropriate authorities, including Interpol's National Central Bureau in Azerbaijan, to ensure their search. Why did the forests take our mother from us? Why did you leave children orphaned, Khojaly? I would give my life for you, O Khojaly. Wounded Khojaly is a legendary tale for generations. I will now talk about 2 close relatives who share strange fates. The husband of one and the mother of the other went missing for 30 years. In that snowy winter, those little children crossed the Gardar River, and my brother stayed wounded in his forest for 4 days that night. The remains of a relative of one were found and returned to his family. Another is still waiting. The Azerbaijani people, who have faced genocide by Armenians at various times in history, encountered another such tragedy in Khojaly at the end of the 20th century. This was one of the most horrific crimes that occurred rarely in human history and marked the culmination of Armenia's military aggression against our country. On the night of February the 25th to the 26th, 1992, Armenian armed groups, supported by the armored vehicles and military personnel of the 366th Motorized Rifle Regiment stationed in Khankendi, entered the city of Khojaly and committed the crime against humanity known as the Khojaly Genocide. On the same day, when illegal Armenian military units entered the city of Khojaly with a population of 7,613 civilians were brutally killed. 1,000 residents of different ages remained disabled from gunshot wounds. 106 women, 61 young children, and 70 old people were killed. 8 families were destroyed. 25 children lost both parents, and 130 children lost one of their parents. On the night of the tragedy, 1,275 peaceful residents were taken captive. There is not a single Khojaly family that has not lost a martyr, suffered a loss, or endured suffering. We were all small. Neither did we ever get enough of our mother, nor did she ever have enough of us. They treated everyone, women, children, the sick, the elderly, without pity, without concessions, and any sense of humanity. This is Armenian fascism. It means that there would be no more terrible fascism in the world than Armenian fascism. We saw it with our eyes. As of October the 1st, 2024, 209 individuals have been registered as missing persons by the State Commission in connection with the Khojaly massacre, and an increase in this number cannot be ruled out considering the incoming applications. Shahiba Khanum stopped waiting after 30 years. But what about Latafat Khanum, who is still unaware of her mother, who was killed in pre-arranged ambushes while trying to escape violence and save her life? The State Commission of the Republic of Azerbaijan, with the participation of the International Red Cross Committee, has collected biological samples from the family members of missing individuals related to citizens who were captured, missing, or abducted. The genetic profiles obtained from these samples are being compared with genetic profiles extracted from human remains. Additionally, forensic medical and forensic molecular genetic examinations have been appointed to clarify whether the presented bones belong to humans, how many individuals they are associated with, their cause of death, and other relevant circumstances. Relevant opinions have been obtained and submitted to the investigative authority. Currently, work is ongoing at the Central Laboratory of the Military Medical Main Department of the State Security Service and the Ministry of Health's Union of Forensic Medical Examination and Pathological Anatomy to identify samples taken from human skeletal remains. At the same time, there is a high likelihood of discovering mass graves in the recently liberated territories in the future. At its own expense, the Azerbaijani state carries out landscaping and construction work in the territories liberated from work, and also carries out the process of detecting remains in difficult conditions in these places polluted by mines according to international requirements and scientific experience. The procedure for processing bones in the laboratory is quite difficult, and 2 rooms have been created in the laboratory for this. First, bones are processed in this room, and after different procedures, they are transferred to the other room for the next stage. To work in both rooms, we must necessarily wear special clothes, since both rooms are sterilized. Now, a mechanical procedure is being carried out on the bone in this room, and according to preliminary estimates, the bone found in that massive grave, which is currently under construction, belongs to a little-aged person. Work is conducted on the left femur, and there is confidential information on papers about the bone here. The genetic-based identification process relies on comparing a DNA sample provided by the individual before going missing or before death with a DNA sample taken from an unidentified body, or it compares a DNA sample obtained from alleged relatives of the individual with a DNA sample from the unidentified body. This is the most reliable and most appropriate method to apply. Because not everyone in the population has a fingerprint or dental X-ray image taken before their death. However, each missing person definitely has at least one living relative. Kinship degree basic method based on kinship relationships is a comparison method that we also apply today and is recognized worldwide as the most informative and reliable identification method. DNA samples are obtained from family members, and skeletal samples and DNA profiles are made. These profiles are entered into the database in electronic format. The information database in our center stores about 11,000 DNA profiles taken from family members of missing persons, and this process still continues today. The database in which the DNA profiles of family members are stored does not allow interference with any manual entry. This is designed to fully protect the confidentiality of the system and to prevent any potential human errors. Our laboratory has all the modern technology designed for this process. Also, today we use robotic systems that are not available in many countries in our region. The shadows of the past reappear, reminding us of pain and suffering. But the memory of the victims will live in our hearts. It will call us to the search for truth and justice all the time.
25 sentyabr 2024-cü il tarixində olan məlumata əsasən, 2-ci Qarabağ müharibəsindən
According to the information, as of September 25, 2024, after the Second Karabakh War, 379 people, including military personnel and civilians, suffered from mine explosions.
Bir qadın yaralanıb və 2 kütləvi informasiya vasitəsi nümayəndəsi həlak olub.
According to the information dated October 1st, 2024, from the State Commission on Prisoners of War, Hostages and Missing Persons of the Republic of Azerbaijan, 3,980 individuals have been registered as missing as a result of Armenia's military aggression against Azerbaijan. 3,974 of them were lost in the First Karabakh War and 6 in the Patriotic War. Of these 3,980 people, 3,207 are military personnel personnel and 773 are civilians. Of the civilians, 75 of them are children under the age of majority, 116 are women, and 314 are elderly. The continuation of the appeals suggests that this is not the final statistics. As a result of forensic molecular genetic examinations of the discovered remains, the identities of 155 individuals missing from the First Karabakh War have been identified and made public. Their remains were buried by the requirements of relevant legislation as well as national and religious customs. The facts we discuss, present, and bring to light begin with the mass graves uncovered in the liberated lands of Karabakh. But it is not the end. These burials are the eternal point for our compatriots whose lost human lives, hopes, and futures have been stolen. Each discovered detail carries not only the pain and sorrow of one individual, but also the suffering, grief, and lost joys of an entire family and community. With the discovery of these burial grounds, we not only witness this tragedy, but also rewrite a piece of our history. We will convey these facts to the world community, both to ensure justice and to teach future generations an unforgettable lesson. Just as our lands are free, the souls of our martyrs, who are now found in mass graves, are free, like our lands.